Dogworks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dog Works. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by First Paw Coffee Company, specializing in private label premium blend coffee. If you're serious about coffee, you should check it out. First Paw Coffee's passion is high-quality, small-batch roasted coffee. They take the extra time to taste and get everything perfect before they release new blends. They aim to bring you a cup of happiness each time you pour yourself some coffee. Find out more at ak.dog/free and enter for a chance to win some First Paw Coffee prizes, a book from our collection, and tote bag. One winner will be selected at random each month. That's ak.dog/free.
In this time of social distancing and self-quarantine and shelter in place, what better time to kick back on the couch with your pooch and have a Netflix party? I may be a bit biased here, but my all-time favorite dog movie right now is the sled dog movie Togo. But you can't watch it on Netflix, so it doesn't count. But if you finished Marley and Me and seek more films about dogs, we will indulge you. Though considered to be the holy grail of films featuring man's best friend, there's a lot more beyond Marley and Me in the cinematic universe that center on our canine companions. Beware, though, some of them may be too heartbreaking to watch. Heck, all of them probably are.
From First Paw Media, sponsored by Alaska Dog Works Professional Canine Training Center in Anchorage, Alaska. This is Dogworks Radio, committed to families and their dogs to build lifelong and fulfilling relationships. Visit our website at dogworksradio.com. Now here are your hosts, Robert and Michele Forto.
Hello and welcome to Dogworks Radio. This is Michele Forto and I am the lead trainer at Alaska Dog Works. On today's show, we are going to take a look at the best dog movies on Netflix right now. In the new normal of the coronavirus and what my husband is hashtagging Captain Trips, after the flu-like plague from the Stephen King book The Stand, we know times are tough. Right now, you are probably self-quarantining with your family and your dog, and you are looking for something to take your mind off of the barrage of media reports. Let's get started. Dog films are always sad, even if the endings aren't, because dogs are some of the most wonderful, loyal, and loving little creatures in the world. They will never give up on you, no matter what. Sure, they might go on a temper tantrum or two on certain occasions, or convulse and go on a wild rampage, ruining precious house furnishings in the process. But they'll never leave your side. And frankly, these eccentricities are why we love them. They're unpredictable, wacky, and always up for an adventure. Yet, eerily enough, dogs are deftly able to pick up on our emotions. In this sense, dogs are our true ride or dies, and that's not up for discussion. To see them being their dog selves on cinema is a gift. I'm going to discuss a list of films about dogs. It's far from a definitive list, though. Rather, these films are the best ones you'll be able to stream on Netflix right now. Although, who are we kidding? There aren't bad films about dogs. Granted, often they're cheesy and filled with easily digestible sermons about the human condition. But come on, dogs? What's not to love? From feel-good flicks to downright heart-wrenching stories, some of them are the best films for all of you dog lovers out there. Make sure to have plenty of tissues at the ready, because we all know these are guaranteed to turn on the waterworks. Benji. Chances are, if you love watching dog movies, you've already stumbled upon this really popular gem of a movie. Released originally in 1974, which by today's standards means it's a proper classic. We follow a homeless, scruffy dog who rescues a pair of children from their kidnappers. If you're still not sold on the film after reading that, we seriously encourage you to have your heart checked stat. All kidding aside, though, Benji is one of the must-watch items in the great pantheon of dog movies that'll melt your heart not once, but multiple times. To be fair, though, the list is super long. Benji is referring to the titular character made a mark on everyone's hearts decades ago for his wit, indelible brightness, and the myriad ways in which he navigates the world. He can relegate it as nothing more than the cliched dog saves the day. Fair all you want, but there's no denying just how utterly adorable this whole film is. Bonus, it's also one of the first movies to feature a golden mutt, here played by renowned actor Higgins. Yes, canine actors are a thing, and yes, that's the most precious, most delicately heart-wrenching thing you'll read today. The film in question might just be the Netflix reboot of the original classic, but it's still delightful as ever. The Stray. This film tells the true story of a stray dog named Pluto who comes out of nowhere, radically changes the Davis family, who are neck-deep in various troubles. Unkind as fate is to this lovable crew, Pluto wanders in like a glimmer of hope there, hopefully to help the Davises rethink friendship, family, and love. Pluto does a slew of amazing feats in just a short span of time. At one point, he manages to save a toddler's life. Then the next moment, he brings comfort and companionship to a 9-year-old boy. As if that's not impressive enough, he also saves a marriage and even helps a father and his son tie loose ends and reconnect. Pluto, rightfully described as not just a guard dog, but a guardian angel, proves that sometimes it's up to our furry friends to help us navigate the choppy waters of human life and its plethora of tribulations. Indeed, they're just dogs, a raucous amalgamation of snout and fur and wagging tongues. Beyond their instinct for adventure, play, and bonding, however, lies a special quality of loyalty, friendship, and love. In other words, dogs are the best, and this film hones that point even further. Hotel for Dogs. Call it contrived, call it immature, call it brain dead. Heck, call it whatever bad thing you can think of. Hotel for Dogs isn't exactly an Orson Welles cinematic masterpiece, which prides multidimensional facets of life layered through the lens of American sensibilities. There's none of that here, so don't go in expecting that from Hotel for Dogs. If you're not much troubled by this film not being Oscar-worthy, then step right up. Want a simple, feel-good, popcorn-friendly flick? This is for you. In Hotel for Dogs, we follow Andy and Bruce as they try to find a new home for their dog, Friday, after their new guardians forbid them from having a pet. With luck, they stumble upon an abandoned hotel. Thanks to Bruce's genius, they manage to transform the hotel into one made especially for our canine friends. Soon after, though, neighbors start getting suspicious about mysterious barks in the area. As the threat of losing a home for dogs looms large, Andy and Bruce do all they can to keep anyone from discovering their little operation. The cutesy factor in this one might be a bit too much on the nose, even for some kids, but nevertheless, it doesn't fail to make our hearts fuzzy with awe. And maybe that's because the animals featured here are trained actors instead of bland CGI digital puppets. White Fang, originally in French but dubbed by a stellar cast that includes Nick Offerman, Rashida Jones, and the always lovable Paul Giamatti, to name a few. White Fang is an animated feature based on Jack London's seminal classic for the same name. We're in Yukon, Canada during the 1890s Klondike Gold Rush, following a loyal wolf dog as his curiosity leads him to an adventure of a lifetime. In his journey, he manages to serve 3 distinctly different masters, each of whom teach him important lessons on morality, redemption, and love. London's novel, published in 1906, is a well-known classic tale that's been translated into over 89 languages. We're not sure if it's fair to call this film the definite adaptation of London's phenomenal source material, but it's a remarkable attempt at bringing those pages to life. Although the pacing is adjusted to suit shorter attention spans, it still honors the episodic delights of its source material. The visual splendor deserves special mention, too. If anything, it's an expertly sublime screen translation of the original. At its core, though, White Fang, both the novel and this film, remains a powerful, affecting story of a journey like no other. Balto. Another one of the animated films in this list, Balto, centers on a sled dog who led the mission of mercy for Alaskan children in 1925. The heroic titular character of the film's namesake, voiced here by Kevin Bacon, is an outcast half-wolf who risks his own life to prevent a deadly epidemic from ravaging Nome, Alaska. With great courage and fortitude, Balto sets off on an ambitious mission, leading a dog team of 6 on a 600-mile trip across the Alaskan outback in order to fetch medical supplies for his townspeople. If you must know, Balto was actually inspired by a true story, which in turn inspired the Iditarod sled dog race. Some reviewers have called Balto blandly heroic as a character, while some regard the whole film as half-hearted and melodramatic. Granted, it's no White Fang in its mediation on journey and self-actualization, but come on now, let's give these adorable dogs a break. Often rambly and sometimes packed with unnecessary elements, Balto is far from perfect. Still, though, it's got a pretty huge heart underneath all the fluff, and you're patient enough, you're going to hear it beat and enjoy this simple, heartwarming tale. White God. One of the more serious entries in this list, White God is a cinematic masterpiece that just so happens to feature dogs. Lots and lots of them, actually. We square in on a young Lily who forced to give up Hagen, whose mixed breed heritage is deemed unfit by the government. To escape the chains of the oppressive state, Lily and Hagen both individually set off on an incredible, perilous, and life-threatening journey back towards each other. While all this unfolds, all the unwanted, unloved, and unfit dogs start a revolution, headed by none other than the firecracker Hagen. We'd share more, but this is the kind of film that's best experienced firsthand instead of explained. Let the medium of the film do its job. You're going to thank us later. We can share this. White God is an ambitious, astounding mediation on the way people impose control over others. If you're the political kind, this will resonate quite a great deal, especially since it reaches far to illustrate the dystopian regime where the state openly steals our loved ones with no pushback. Where the Red Fern Grows. Like Benji, elsewhere in this list, Where the Red Fern Grows is a dog flick released in the 1970s, which also makes it a classic among many. This fun, family-friendly film is based on the source novel by Wilson Rawls, which follows a young Oklahoma boy as he navigates the hard times of the 1930s. There, to get him through the unforgiving ordeals of this era, are two lovable and loyal hounds offering comfort and solace in a time of great depravity. This is what we mean by saying dogs will never leave you no matter what, in both good times and bad. They'll be there to stumble through the vicissitudes of life with you. Through thick and thin, though choppy the sails might be, they'll be there offering genuine, unconditional love. It's a timeless, beautifully made portrait of friendship that often goes unmentioned. Like other dog-centric films, when talking about films that focus squarely on the tumultuous journeys friends go through, it's just as fantastic and moving as Thelma and Louise or Stand By Me. Do yourself a favor and watch this affectionate, harrowing tale of friendship in trying times. Hachi, A Dog's Tale. Hachi, A Dog's Tale is based on Hachiko Monogatari, I butchered that so bad. I'm so sorry, you guys. A Japanese film released in 1987 about an Akita dog that stayed loyal to its master well after that master passed away. We'll understand if you prefer that version over the Americanized adaptation in 2009. To tell you the truth, we prefer the original too. Still, it's fair to give this one a try. After all, it stars the ever-warm Richard Gere, here playing a college professor who finds an abandoned dog and takes him in as his own. Predictably, the two form a likely but unexpected friendship, the sheer power of which startles Gere's character. Like the original film on which it's based, Hachi, A Dog's Tale is a pure grade tearjerker. But not for the sake of making you ugly cry. There's genuinely something compelling here. Perhaps it's the unusual power of lasting friendships we can form with non-humans that makes this particularly special. Maybe it's the way it demonstrates and doesn't overstate a touching but very simple story about finding a connection from someone or something you least expect. Or it's because Hachi is such a sweetheart. Yup, probably just Hachi. Watch this now if you haven't already. We're going to take a short break.
So earlier you learned about First Paw Coffee Company, and now I'm going to tell you about its Tail Wagger Blend. First Paw Coffee Company's Tail Wagger Blend is their first offering, and its name and label were crowdsourced from their Facebook fans. How cool is that? The Tail Wagger Blend is a private label premium blend that was developed just for them. It is a medium roast from Colombian beans with tastes of Brazil nuts, grapefruit, and oak. Be sure to go to ak.dog/free and enter to win a bunch of cool prizes. That's ak.dog/free.
All right, and we are back with your Netflix binging delights, The Fox and the Hound. A fox cub and a bloodhound pup star in this affectionate animated tale from 1981. Back when Disney was still making hand-drawn animation, we got gems like these. Not to mention The Black Cauldron and, of course, The Little Mermaid. Although the company is now fully invested in computer-generated graphics, we can still admire the craftsmanship behind masterpieces like this. But we digress. The Fox and the Hound may not hold a candle animation-wise to the likes of Frozen, Wreck-It Ralph, or Zootopia, but it reminds one of Disney's most overlooked and underappreciated gems. It's not merely a good film about dogs, it's a decently paced and structured film in general. If a bit thinly plotted and too campy and cheerful at times, it's insufficient in the signature emotional wallop that gives Snow White and Cinderella lasting appeal. Sure, at times it borders on being too droll, and there's a palatable sense that reveals Disney's headspace at the time, not having quite its own voice yet, but slowly getting there. In any case, this one, we'd argue, is still worth a watch, especially if you're craving some good old hand-drawn pleasure. The Secret Life of Pets. It's no Toy Story or Coco, of course, so don't expect too much from the writing. Still, The Secret Life of Pets, cheesy and too aimed at kids as it is, works because it borrows a familiar tried and tested formula that's sure to rake in laughs, bring non-human subjects to life. In the case of Toy Story, those subjects are toys. In Coco, it's literally souls of the departed. Given this, Illumination did a safe move by bringing pets to life, foisting on them the peculiarities, verve, and off-kilter qualities humans possess, which somehow look doubly ridiculous when it's animals doing them. For the most part, it works. The premise here is simple and adorable. What do pets do when owners go away? That's an irresistible concept to mull over, and no doubt you're already curious enough about this question to start streaming. And if you do, you won't be disappointed. The Secret Life of Pets is vivid, colorful, emotionally deft, and often funny. A handful of hijinks occur throughout the run, though some misadventures seem to feel more like their filler than something truly transcendent. The writing could do better. is what we're saying. But if you want a fun-filled adventure with an adorable, clever crew of pets, this will be your jam. The Champions, a documentary, stars Cherry, a lovable pit bull who's living with a family who loves him just as much as he loves them. And also Little Red, who despite aging, still loves to run and play with her family at their 6-acre home in Wyoming. There's also Handsome Dan, whose adorably square face merits his moniker. Finally, there's Johnny, a super cheerful pup who sidelines as a therapy dog. These dogs may live across the country, but their lives are entangled by an unfortunate common denominator. Cherry, Little Red, Handsome Dan, Johnny, and 50 other dogs just like them were once part of Michael Vick's illegal dogfighting ring. The Champions tells the story of how these dogs survived the conditions of that harrowing fighting ring. It peels back the curtain behind Vic's atrocities on animals and in turn inspires us with an affecting message that addresses discrimination and prejudice. It also proves just how resilient these animals are. Precious Puppies. This short documentary from way back 2003 to be exact about puppies, their different breeds, and just all the puppy behavior in general, it's the most adorable thing in the world. Much like Babies was a documentary about, well, babies, which showed footage of different toddlers around the globe spanning cultures and languages, Puppies also features a coterie of different types of pups, and every single one of them obviously will melt your heart. There's not much more to say about this film, really. If you want to de-cleanse, so to speak, after watching something super scary, stream this one immediately right after. We doubt you'll handle the sheer cuteness of the pups and Precious Puppies. Better idea, put this on if you're going away so your dogs have something to watch when you're gone. Simply delightful from start to finish. Super Buddies. Dogs as superheroes with matching costumes? How can you keep reading or listening to this? Go watch it. Jokes aside, there's plenty to love about Super Buddies, a film Disney released in 2013. It follows Butterball, Mudbud, B-Dog, Buddha, and Rosebud, who discover mysterious rings that give them each a unique superpower. When a shape-shifting bully from outer space arrives and threatens the safety of our world, these tough canine crew come to our rescue. Bonus, John Ratzenberger, veteran Disney voice actor, is in this film. Actually, it's kind of amazing this film is largely overlooked. Granted, it's not a cinematic masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but it has its moments and it uses them to great effect. The story might be a bit too contrived and the dialogue too cheesy for our taste, but come on, give these dog heroes a break, will you? Turner and Hooch. This beloved classic, considered one of the most important dog films ever made, stars Tom Hanks, a detective working in a small California coastal town. One day, a man named Amos Reed is murdered, shocking the entire town. No one saw what happened, except for this smelly mutt named Hooch. Surprise, surprise, Hank's character isn't particularly fond of dogs and despises Hooch, too. But because he's the only reliable witness that can solve this murder, they are compelled to work together, with Hooch even making Hank's home his temporary home in the process. Of course, they end up being solid friends by the end of the film. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. The fun instead is in watching how these two work together and come to be friends. It's a fun journey filled with laughs, thrills, intrigue, and a whole lot of heart. You will see Turner and Hooch mentioned in every definitive list of dog films ever made, and for good reason. Aside from being a heartwarming buddy cop movie, it's genuinely fun and affecting film in general. Turner and Hooch is a pleasant, silly, offbeat, but ultimately cheerful film that provides more delights than ponder-worthy plot points. But you really didn't click on this list expecting any of these films to have complex, Oscar-worthy plots, did you? Red Dog. Red Dog is based on the strikingly poignant true story of the red dog who united a frayed local community while navigating the unforgiving Australian outback as he seeks his long-lost master. It came out sometime in 2012 or 2013 and was called sappy and melodramatic. That's not a fair estimation, though. Okay, sure, it's full of larger-than-life moments that feel stunted, amplified to turn on the waterworks, and much of it, we have to admit, feels unusually close to myth-making, which is unusual considering it's based on a true story. Dramatic licenses aside, Red Dog is a dog story that has plenty of humor and heart. And the impressive thing about it was that it's not just a story that blatantly forces you to cry. It works its way there. It earns the tears, which is why it's easy to understand why it's such a classic among our Australian friends. So what if it dwells too much on nostalgia? So what if its screenplay magnifies certain elements on the true story on which it's based? So what if its storytelling feels too episodic at some points? Worry not about those. Just enjoy this flick for its sheer cheerfulness and broadly painted but still meaningful portrait of friendship. Space Dogs. This family, fun, friendly, animated doozy puts a talented circus dog, a scrappy street canine, and oddly, a rat together and blasts them off on a journey into outer space. The story is based on the real-life adventures of Belka and Strelka, who in 1960 became the first animals to orbit the Earth and return to bark the tail. When Belka's circus act comes to be entangled in an unfortunate mishap, she comes crashing down to Earth in her homemade rocket. But there's a silver lining in that accident. Through it, she soon becomes fast friends with Strelka, a dog who's brimmed in street smarts, and Venya, a sharp-tongued rodent. What's better than a dog in space? 2 dogs in space, of course. What's better than 2 dogs in space? Well, 2 dogs and a rat. This film has that, and then some. It brings to laughs, cheers, and might even trigger kids into being interested in the wonder of space travel. It hews on the history lesson a bit at times, and rightly so. After all, these Sputnik dogs are an important part of aerospace history. But for what it's worth, it's a pretty delightful journey. Cujo. Wondering why we put this so far down in our list? That's because this film isn't for the faint of heart. We're not one to mince words. Seriously, if you can't handle gore, it's probably best if you skip this one and just stick with the cheerful entries elsewhere in our list. If you're interested, though, listen up. First of all, Cujo is a really, really scary movie. It tells the story of a rabid St. Bernard dog who terrorizes a woman and her son who are trapped in a car. As the dog ravages on, the two are forced to stay inside the car for days and try a means of escape. The source material of this flick explains why it's so damn terrifying. None other than Stephen King wrote it. Director Louis Teague did a fantastic job translating to screen the suspense and terror embedded within King's pages, which makes it one of the genuinely successful Stephen King adaptations. At times, though, it borders on being too dull, with the horror seeming a bit meaningless, the suspense merely an anxiety-inducing stimulant. Still, if you want a movie about dogs that's not all about how adorable and loving they are, this is the one to see. Just don't make the mistake of watching it with your kids. Dogs with Jobs. Need we really say more? It's all in the title. Well, if the title wasn't clear enough, Dogs with Jobs is about dogs with, well, jobs. Animals trying hard to be successfully human-like is always comedic gold, and this one, a Canadian TV series, pulls it off quite successfully. But more than show something downright comedic, this takes it further by taking a serious look at the way some of our canine friends perform amazing tasks. From herding cattle to guiding the blind, this series proves that dogs really are man's best friend. This should perhaps come as no surprise, Police force have long been aided by dogs to track criminals and sniff out contraband items. Is it really that shocking that they're great at other things besides eating, sleeping, and ruining our shoes? Just make sure that when you're done watching this, you won't be in any rush to force your dog to perform a human job just because you're jealous other dogs can. That's not really fair, is it? Thanks for joining us on Dogworks Radio today. We hope that you enjoyed our feature about films about dogs on Netflix that you can stream during these trying times. As always, check out our social channels and leave us some comments.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by First Paw Coffee Company. Learn more at firstpaw.coffee.
You can support this podcast on patreon.com/Timaneke. From First Paw Media, this is Dogworks Radio. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you'll see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Robert and Michele Forto. Our producer is Robert Forto and created for First Paw Media. Did you know that Alaska Dog Works trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michele Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska Dog Works on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.